Hi, and welcome to Albuquerque Real Estate Talk with Tego and Tracy Venturi of the Venturi Group of Real Broker here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Something like 450 some episodes. I don't remember anyway, but it's September 2023. It's State Fair time, Tracy.
My favorite month of the year.
Yeah.
I love September. Not just State Fair, but it's just such beautiful weather. We have such great weather in September and nice cool mornings and warm afternoons.
Most people, that have lived here in New Mexico always say fall's my favorite time of year. And I think we can see why, right? It's warm days, cool nights, and mild, it's just a great time of year. Anyway.
So speaking of that, I'm going to go show a house in a little bit. So I won't even be here for the whole show today.
What, you're going to bail out on me?
I am, but isn't it great? I love it when I have people from out of area who get to appreciate the beautiful weather we have, and I get to show them our beautiful homes and neighborhoods. So it's like perfect. I mean, how could somebody not love our area when it's like it is right now?
No, for sure. Tracy, we're going to talk about a few things related to real estate, because that's what we do is we talk about real estate here in the Albuquerque area and, of course, nationally as well. Tracy, I participated on a panel up in Rio Rancho, just talking about housing, Rio Rancho and what's going on there. But, it's kind of the overall market. We can talk about that. There was an interesting question of the week that came up. It's like, how do you measure a house? How do you actually calculate square footage of a property? So we're going to go into that. I've got some latest stats on,
of course.
Well, not just stats. I've got the local stats, but I also have some national forecasts on both national home prices as well as national mortgage rates. And I want to start with that kind of conversation, Tracy, and get your thoughts on these, because this is a list I came up with, and I was at this event the other day, talking about the housing market. And oh, by the way, if you want to get a hold of us, we're the Venturi Group at Real Broker at 505-448-8888. Forgot about that.
Phone number is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Or you can see us online, welcomehomeabq.com. You can message us there, or just give us a call.
So we were talking about the housing market here in Albuquerque in particular, but it's also nationally. And I put together this list of the top things that are kind of affecting or driving the housing market right now in real estate. And I think the first and foremost is the lack of inventory. The number of homes on the market is just still at a very, very low number.
Very low. Yeah.
And then, when we're helping clients, we're still challenged with multiple offers, correct?
We are. I would say probably at least 3/4 of the properties that we put an offer on have more than one offer. Would you say that's about right?
And what is it that makes a home have multiple offers versus a home that doesn't? Because we know not every home is selling right away.
Yeah. Well, part of it, I think, is the marketing effort that the realtor who lists the property puts into getting the word out about the house, the quality of the photos, the quality of the information that's out there. But then it's, is the house priced right for the location, the condition? How does it smell when you walk in? How does it feel when you walk in? Are the lights on and the curtains open? Because what we know with working with buyers is they pretty much decide if they like or don't like a house about 10 seconds inside the front door, right?
Yeah.
And it's that feel that they get and how it felt and what the first view is. So getting that house ready for market and presenting it in the best light makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation because, technically, if you look at all the technical data and you look at the numbers, we're in an extremely strong seller's market, but not every home is selling right away.
It's true.
But the reason we're in a strong seller's market is, again, this whole idea of lack of inventory. And along with that is that people aren't listing their homes for sale as often.
Right. Right. Well, and part of that, Tego, obviously is work from home, right? A lot of times if people switch jobs now, they don't necessarily have to move.
Right.
Right. Whereas in the past, there was a lot more movement associated with job changes.
Yeah.
So lots of reasons, but.
Yeah. So that was kind of my first one, was this kind of lack of inventory, less home sales, less homes coming on the market, right? That's kind of one of the big macro things that affecting real estate and housing in particular. And then, of course, the other one's mortgage rates.
Right.
We're in this kind of 7.5% world, even for a well-qualified somebody getting a mortgage, they're looking at 7.5%.
Yeah. And, Tego, back when I got into real estate, 2001 through whatever, 7.5 was the norm.
I know.
That was norm. And we when we think historically, that's, 7.5% still pretty good compared to some years.
Okay, but I'm going to give you the pushback on that, which is, home prices were at a very, very different place.
But incomes were at a very different place too.
Yeah.
So,
fair.
I mean, come on, everything's moved. Maybe some things are out of balance, but it seems like things come and go.
Okay, I'm going to argue with you on that because the next thing on my list was affordability.
Right.
And
you're going to say Albuquerque in New Mexico area is still more affordable than most places in the country.
It stinks, but it doesn't stink as bad. Yeah.
It's not bad, but not as bad.
No, and again, that's one of the big stories nationally is that, homes and just the cost of housing in general, not just purchase, but also rent. Renting properties has gone up substantially, especially since, it kind of all really got triggered at the beginning of the pandemic and that first summer. And then it's just continually gone up. We had a little bit of pullback, but not that much. So,
right.
And then that's the fourth thing is home price. Oh, go ahead.
I still have to go back to what percentage of somebody's income goes to their housing costs. And maybe over time, there's a chart,
There is. It's
that.
Almost all-time worst ever, other than the 1980s.
Yeah. And the 1980s and the early 80s, though, interest rates were like 18% for a house.
And that's why.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's a different time. And there's this, I got just a side note. It's a funny thing, I follow all these economists, especially housing economists and what they're talking about and what they're seeing. And anytime there's good news on the economy, that's kind of bad news for interest rates, because if the economy stays strong, if inflation is still, a concern, mortgages are going to still be expensive. The cost of money is still going to be expensive. So anyway, those are just kind of like some big things I'm thinking about in the housing market.
And what was the fourth thing?
The fourth thing was just home price appreciation.
Right.
How we've had this kind of unprecedented home price appreciation over the last 4 years. We did have a slowdown in appreciation here in Albuquerque from, let's say, May of last year through December of last year. But since the beginning of this year, it's, home prices have continually gone up. We kind of seem like, and I'll get to this in our local update, but it does seem like maybe we've hit a little bit of plateau, a seasonal plateau this right now in September. But no, big downturn, no crash for sure. Nothing like that. So,
right. I saw something interesting.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Zillow, we are, we're premier agents with Zillow, the best of Zillow, or, they give us all those great accolades every month, which is awesome. But they also do a lot of statistics, which that's your job. So I could hardly even say the name.
Well, they're pretty good at statistics, I got to say.
They do. They put out great stuff. And they just did a report by Zillow with a survey that found 83% of U.S. prospective home buyers considered climate risks like flooding, fires, extreme temperatures, and hurricanes when choosing a new home, which you think about in New Mexico. We don't have to think about that very much, do we? I mean,
no.
We do have to think about flooding here and there because some areas along the Rio Grande are still in the floodplain. But we don't get like a tropical storm that comes through and floods. But we do have some people that need flood insurance here. But 83% of those thinking about buying a home are thinking about natural disasters and where they want to live.
It's interesting when you talk to local insurance people, the biggest claim, the biggest issue is hail damage.
Right.
And of course, in we are New Mexico. We have mountains, right? We do have part of the Rocky Mountains. And so we do have those mountainous areas and we do get wildfires. And that's the other thing.
Yeah.
But it's, those are generally not as densely populated areas. So it is interesting. I saw that story and a lot of debate on that. What does that mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, and the thing is, the majority of today's home buyers are Gen Z and millennials, and they're more likely, according to the statistics, than other generations to consider a climate risk when deciding where to buy.
Yeah. the debate I saw on that, what exactly is a climate risk? What exactly does that mean? There was a whole big thing again in what I call housing Twitter, that I follow all the housing people on Twitter talking about it. So it's an interesting conversation.
So the question of the week.
Yes.
How is square footage calculated? I know that there's different standards. There's ANSI standards, which is what the National Society of
hold on.
ANSI.
Yeah.
I don't know what ANSI stands for. ANSI.
I don't remember. Oh, you're going to put me on the spot.
But
now.
it doesn't matter. Everybody just says ANSI. So it's under their guidelines, right?
Well, and let me just put a caveat on this. So last year, I guess 2022, Fannie Mae, which is one of the big, entities that funds a lot of the mortgages in the country, they put out and said, from now on going forward, appraisers will use the ANSI Z765-2021 rules for measuring properties. And in intent, and it's a good intent, and what's happened with that, even though Fannie Mae is the only one that really said that, everybody else has kind of followed the same suit. Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, everybody's kind of, so we have a standardized way to measure a house.
And so measuring versus what counts for square footage. So under the ANSI guidelines, obviously, how is it calculated versus what qualifies as part of the square footage, right? And the standard is it's heated square footage, interior finished space that is provided with a permanent heating system. So interior. So if they have a heated garage, that's not considered interior livable space. They didn't say the word livable, but usually it includes livable, heated indoor space.
Well, and it does, and it has to be finished space too, not just heated.
Not like an attic that has heat or something.
Correct. It's finished space.
And so some of those key points, we've had people before where they've maybe added on a room or a sunroom, and they have a plug-in heater. While in our area, AC is not required. A cooling system is not required for it to be livable space, but heating is.
Correct.
Right? But it can't just be a plug-in. It has to be hardwired heating.
Permanent heating.
Right.
Yeah, it can't be a space heater. It can't even be a plug-in, baseboard heater that's maybe mounted to the wall. It has to be hardwired.
What about...
And, also on the sunroom thing, it has to be, again, kind of like finished interior space. And
has to be of a high quality, similar to the quality of the home.
There you go. Thank you.
What about, if it's heated with wood or pellet stove or something as the heat source?
That counts. It does count because that is a permanent heating source.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I just thought I was putting you on the spot.
Oh, no. There's other guidelines and stuff like the height of the room, the ceiling height. It has to be, I think 5 foot is the bare minimum to consider, but really it's like 7 foot,
So, in the old farmhouse I grew up in, the upstairs, of course, where all the kid bedrooms were.
Yeah.
All the ceilings in the bedroom sloped up to the peak of the farmhouse.
Sure.
And then the bedroom that I shared with my sister Jane, who works with us in real estate, had a very big slope down.
How far you guys have come.
Yeah. Think about that. Farm girls from Minnesota down in New Mexico. But, it would qualify because where it landed on the side wall was high enough up that you could put furniture under it and things. So it was.
And one last thing, one of the most common misunderstandings about measuring square footage on a house, which we're talking about, is that you measure from the exterior. You don't measure interior size. So you do get the thickness of the wall. Even if it's a 12-inch adobe wall, you get that. I mean, that is considered part of the square footage. And again, it's to standardize how we measure homes.
So you remember back when I was a new realtor and I was going to all the classes of how to learn real estate, and Bev Hilton, trainer extraordinaire, Bev Hilton, did training every week. And one week she took us to a house and said, okay, everybody bring your tape measures and your pads and your lined paper with 10 squares in it.
Yep.
Yeah. So each square was 2 feet.
Yeah.
And we're going to go and show you how to measure and draw a floor plan of a house and know how big it is so you can represent it. And that was great learning. Really easy to do, to put a floor plan together for a single-story ranch house that's almost a rectangle.
Yeah.
But you get to a 2-story house with rounded corners and eaves, and the second floor isn't identical to the main floor. No, thank you. That's where we, started hiring people. So it's fun stuff. But
well,
yes.
And now we've got technology with, cameras
Scanning.
with literally lidar, where it's basically like radar in the camera that measures the
scans
house
and puts together the drawing for us. So, but it is exterior. So when we're talking square footage, like you said, it's the exterior. And sometimes those cameras, we have to tell them, hey, this isn't a double wall adobe. That wall that you normally think is a 2x4 construction is 2x6 or double walled adobe or single walled. So we have to let it know. So it's accurate.
Yeah. I have one thing that came up again, which was somebody applying for a loan. They got down to they're applying for a mortgage. It came down to it, and they had applied for a credit card during the process, and it blew them out. So just want to remind everybody, anybody buying a house or getting a mortgage, they got to be really careful because they can't go out and apply for more credit. They can't move money around. They can't do stuff when they're applying for a mortgage because it could blow up their mortgage. We had that happen recently. So just a reminder on that.
And now you get to take us to the end because
I do.
I'm going to run out and show that great property. Have a great weekend, everyone.
So I have the forecast for the national home prices. This comes out from a group called Home Price. It's the Home Price Expectation Survey from Pulsenomics. So Pulsenomics is a big entity, and what they do is they talk to a whole bunch of economists, housing people out there, and take a survey of what everybody's seeing and what they're expecting. And this is nationally, but just for this year, 2023, expectation is 3.3%. For next year, 2024, 2%. And I've seen some that say maybe negative in 2024. All that's going to have to do with the overall economy as well as home price, mortgage rates. And then for 2025, 3.25%. For 2026, 4%. And then in 2027, 4.2%. Overall in Albuquerque, we've seen somewhere around 4% price appreciation over the long period. Now, we've had some years recently where we've had big price appreciation. In 22, I believe it was 17%, which is unsustainable as you can imagine. That is a big number, and the good news is that's pulled down. We're back into single-digit price appreciation, but we're still seeing year-over-year price appreciation. So what I want to jump into now is the local market update for the Albuquerque area and go through what we've just seen here in the Albuquerque Metropolitan Statistical Area, the MSA, which is our 4 counties, Bernalillo, Sandoval, Valencia, and Torrance. And we look at, all the homes that have sold, and we get an idea of, what happened. So I'm going to start off with prices, because these are kind of like the headline numbers. And first and foremost, for the Albuquerque area, again, our whole MSA, the price of a single family detached house, the average price is now $420,716. So about $421,000 is now the average price of a home in the Albuquerque area. Again, a detached home. We're not talking about condos or townhomes. That's a big number. That's an all-time high. We've never seen a number that high. The last time, just here in June, a few months ago, it was 415,000. Again, now we're up over 420. Last year in May, was another peak. We were at about 400,000. So home prices continue to go up in the Albuquerque area. Now, we had a pullback from May of last year through January, as I talked about earlier. But since the beginning of the year now, we've had this price appreciation. So that was the average price. Median price is now $360,000, a little bit different than average. So median is, that mid number between all the homes that sold in August. And again, we're looking at the August data. A couple things that are pretty striking, and this is one we've talked about, and I'm going to talk about again here, is the number of homes being listed for sale. We saw for August of this year, we saw a decline of about 5%, which is much less of a decline than we've had earlier this year, in the sense that we're going to put this in perspective. We think about what was happening in 2021, or excuse me, 2022 last year. We had our interest rates really spike up at about this time last year. And so a lot of people kind of held steady. They stopped putting their homes on the market. Home prices started to deteriorate this time last year. Well, now we're starting to get those year-over-year numbers that take that into account. So again, number of homes listed for sale is down 5%. However, if we look at it from a 12-month, like over the last year, the number of homes listed is down 20%. So what's happening is people are just not listing their homes as often. People are not moving as often. They're staying put. And I saw a national statistic that says the average time that people are staying in their homes now is somewhere around 14 years. And that's almost double from what it was maybe 10 years ago. So people are definitely staying put longer. And I mean, I think we can all understand why is, people that purchased, in 20, 21, 22, or at least the first half of 22, they're probably somewhere in that 3-4% mortgage. Some people have sub 3% mortgage rates. That is very cheap money. You think about that, that's cheaper than what the 10-year bond rate is right now for the T-bill. So it's very cheap money. They have low fixed housing cost, and it's not going to change for 30 years. So they're not super motivated to sell a home and maybe move up to a home that's maybe a little bigger, a little nicer, whatever it is. But now they're doubling their mortgage payment. On top of that, home prices have gone up. So it's really, I've heard it called the housing lockdown nationally, where people are just staying put and they're just not moving as often. So we're seeing that here in the Albuquerque area as well. I'm going to jump to a couple numbers here, but just want to remind you, you're listening to Albuquerque Real Estate Talk with Tego and Tracy Venturi. Without Tracy, she had to leave early. She had to go show a house. So this is Tego Venturi. If you want to get a hold of us, talk real estate, any questions about your home values, if you're looking to buy, looking to sell, of course, that's what we do. We're at 505-448-8888. Okay. Let's look at some of this other data here. The number of sales has declined. And again, we're dealing with these higher mortgage rates. People aren't moving as often. And to a certain extent, I've heard people say it this way is, the only people that are moving right now are people that really have to. There's not that discretionary home buyer in the sense that, well, it'd be nice if I had a little bigger house, or it'd be great if I had that 3-car garage instead of 2-car garage. Well, in the past, people could make that move, make the numbers work. Mortgages, mortgage rates or interest rates weren't that much different. But people aren't doing that right now. So people aren't moving as often. So for home sales in the Albuquerque area in August, it was 866 homes. That was single family detached. Let me look at, I'll include attached, about 950 homes. Pretty low number. Generally, we've averaged somewhere around 1,200 homes per month in the Albuquerque area selling. But it's pretty low. One thing that has happened though is if we look at the number of homes for sale, it's down. It's down quite a bit, and it's down about 15% from last year. But a lot of those homes that are on the market are actually new construction homes. So we've seen overall, we've seen about 15% decline in the number of homes on the market. Well, we're actually on previously owned, it's almost like 19%. So the people that own a home that are reselling their homes aren't listing as often. but new construction has actually picked up. So we're seeing more new construction homes on the market. One other thing I just wanted to, I've been talking about pricing, I've been talking about supply. Let's talk about demand. And the first place I go to look at that is pending sales. So a pending sale is home goes under contract, and in 30, 45, 50 days, let's say, it finally closes and exchanges. So the number of pending sales in August was actually up for the first time in a while for August this year versus August last year. So it tells us that there's still plenty of buyer demand out there. There's still plenty of people that do want to purchase. There's just a lot of challenge with the number of choices they have right now. But people are buying. The other thing we can track is the number of people actually out looking at homes, what we call foot traffic. And foot traffic is also pretty steady. There's people out there showing. So if you think about the progression when looking at market data or real estate market data is, okay, how many people out there looking at homes, actually, touring homes, how many people went under contract or pending, and then how many closed? So we can kind of game that out. And so right now we know foot traffic is still steady. We know pendings were actually up. And so that means in the future, we're going to see some, decent amount of closings. On home prices, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out here through the rest of the year. If seasonal patterns hold true, home prices will probably plateau somewhere around here this time of year in September, and then probably maybe even pull back into December, January, which is very common. And then we'll see home prices start to increase again next year would be my expectation. And going back to those national numbers, 2024 is expected to be a lighter year in home price appreciation, but there's very little forecasting for any decline in home prices. So a lot of information there. When we talk about, people ask me about the market and say, well, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? There's so many different things you have to consider, like the number of people in reverse equity positions, right? They're underwater. They owe more than the home is worth. Well, there's not a whole lot of that out there. The other thing is, how many homes are in foreclosures? There's hardly any. It's like we're at an all-time low number of foreclosures. So all the data points point to a continued increase in home prices. And here locally in Albuquerque, there's a lot of stuff going on with our economic engine and what's going on with growing the economy in the Albuquerque area that is bringing more people in, which again is going to drive demand, in my opinion. So there we go. Like I said, a lot of data there. If you're interested in learning about the market, you can go to our website at welcomehomeabq.com. We have all kinds of good data there on what's going on in the real estate world here, and you can dig in and analyze it yourself. You can always reach out to us if you've got any real estate questions. We're at 505-448-8888, and we're the Albuquerque team of Venturi Realty Group of Real Broker. Thanks for listening, and have yourself a great weekend. Go to the state fair if you're listening to this still in September. Take care. Bye-bye.